Now, I have one little side note here that relates to another of the nodes in the tree that may or may not be part of the exam, but is probably something you should be aware of here with WDS. Recall that everything we're doing so far has to do with WDS working hand in hand with Active Directory to get these machines built and also to get them inserted into our Active Directory domain. But in certain circumstances, we may not necessarily, based off of the configuration that you've set, have that ability natively built into WDS. For that reason, we have this ability here with our Active Directory pre-staged devices. We have the ability to identify devices that we want to automatically add in once those devices boot up. When those devices boot up, if we have some unique identifier for that device, like the MAC address or like that GUID, both of which I showed you just a second ago, we can use either of those unique identifiers as a way of mapping that machine to an Active Directory account. So if I right-click here and choose Add Device here, you'll see that I need to identify a name and a device ID for a specific machine. So let's say I have another computer called My Desktop 4, for example. This device ID can be one of a couple of different items. And if I punch in just some bogus text here, you'll see that those different items can be either the GUID, the MAC address, or a DU ID as well. The GUID and the MAC address were both located on the boot screen when that machine was attempting to boot into Pixie. So that's one way in which you can actually identify this information. Let's, for example, just punch in kind of a bogus GUID here. Let me bring up just a command prompt and do an ipconfig --all so that I can grab the physical address of this machine. So right here would be the physical address, 000C29C6F7C1. That I can plug right here into my device ID, and if I remove out all the extra dashes here to just do the characters, this is all I need to get through this first step of the pre-staged device wizard. If I click down here under Next, this will tell me again the same things like I saw before. Who is my referral server? What's my policy for when that machine attempts to boot? Which boot image do you want? Also, which unattend file do you want? And then what user settings do you want as well? In a situation where we don't have administrator approval enabled and we don't use the name and approve function like I showed you just a minute ago, this pre-staged device wizard is really the only way in which you can otherwise map that GUID or that MAC address for the machine to the computer name you want to give to it. Personally, I just prefer the name and approve mode. I think it's a little easier to use even though it adds an extra step, but this offers another approach that you can use with essentially the same result.